recording.
Usually we get a response.
Yeah, usually it says,
It says meeting is being recorded, yeah.
Can they hear us? Jacqueline or Abigail, can you hear us? You can.
Yes.
You hear them? So-
Okay.
Okay, that works. All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order. And is it 7:07? I'd just like to thank everybody for attending. I am Deb Travis, the chair of the Community Board 8 Parks and Recreation Committee. I have a few housekeeping items for the discussion tonight. As the Community Board Committee, we loosely follow Robert's Rules of Order. We will be following the agenda that was previously distributed. If we open a topic to general discussion, we ask that if you'd like to speak, that you raise your hand and I will call on you. Our goal is to have a good, robust discussion of our agenda items. However, if we have a lot of people who would like to speak on any individual topic, you may only get to speak once, so make sure to make it count. If you are not speaking, we ask that you keep yourself muted to prevent background noise from interrupting others. Also, if you're dialing in on a phone, we ask that you let us know what your name is so that we can properly name you in the Zoom call, just for security reasons. Welcome to everybody who's in the room. Normal rules that we went through grade school apply. Just raise your hand if you would like to speak, and I can call on you. So if you are on Zoom, you will select reactions at the bottom of the screen. If you're on the phone, you use *6 to mute and unmute, and *9 to raise and lower your hand. So I will just start with an introduction of committee members. Bob Bender. Here. Della is absent. Bob Fanuzzi. David Gelman.
Present.
So David will not count towards quorum this evening, but he is present to participate as a committee member. Rashida Hilliard. Here. Rob Jaklowski is absent. Ramdas Singh is absent, and I am Deb Travis. I'm the chair. I'm present. Are there other board members? We have Julie Reyes, who is the chair of Community Board 8. The Honorable, welcome. Thank you. Your evening clap. Are there any other board members on the call? I don't think I see any. And then as far as agencies go, I see Stephanie Ehrlich from the Van Cortlandt Park Alliance and Van Cortlandt Park Administrator. Hi, Stephanie.
Hi, Deb.
Joe Magneri, the District Manager for our park district.
Hi, Deb.
So is there anybody else from Parks on the call? I see Captain Ryan Pierce. Are you from the 50th Precinct?
Hi, yeah.
Thank you, and thank you for making time for us this evening on such short notice. We really appreciate it. So the first order. What? Okay. All right. So just to start off, I would like to make a motion to add to the agenda a discussion of the traffic and double parking at the parade ground fall events. Do I have a second? Anybody opposed? Right, so moved. We'll do that discussion after we have our conversation about Bruss Park. Wait a sec. Actually, I don't have a quorum. I can't modify the agenda. I can do it on new business, yeah. Never mind. So I'm just like, just putting my quorum hat on. So, all right, so I will do that under new business. We have 8 people, and David is remote. So, all right, so we will, I'll table the approval of the minutes until the next meeting in November. All right, so table that. Chair's report, I don't really have much for the chair's report. I thought we would kind of just go right into the discussion, because I thought it might take some time, so I want the ample amount of time. I'm going to go right into the Bruss Park piece. Bob, there's a, here, I can.
To be admitted?
No, I wanted to share screen.
Share screen, okay.
To do I thought you know, it's a, what might be good. Can everybody see the screen I'm sharing?
Yes,
Jacqueline, you're the only video I can see. Can you give me a thumbs up if you can see the screen, the Brush
Yes, we
Park
can
overview
see it.
screen?
we can see it, Deb.
You see it? Okay, thank you, Karen. So I assembled this just because I thought it would be helpful to have pictures, because pictures are worth 1,000 words when you're talking about a paper street. So a little bit of history about this. So Jeff Torkin is the developer of a building that's adjacent to Brush Park. He's here with us this evening, and thank you so much, Jeff, for coming out tonight. We appreciate it. So Timber Equities, you know, developed a 29-unit rental apartment. I believe it started in 2019, was when it roughly commenced. And it's adjacent to Lower Brush Park.
Actually adjacent to 242nd Street.
Yeah, yes, 100%. You know, let me finish and we can do corrections. So it is, technically it's 55 Dash Place, also 3893 Waldo Avenue, and it's bordered by Dash Place on one side, Waldo Avenue essentially on the other side, and an unbuilt portion of West 242nd Street that runs along Brush Park. So that's what I mean by saying it's adjacent. It's just they share this unbuilt portion of West 242nd Street. So this 29-unit rental replaced a single-family home, which had been using a portion of this paper street as its driveway. And well, I've got a map here to kind of make it a little bit clear what was happening. So the new building fronts Dash Place for the residential portion and for the residential garage. And then on Waldo, there is a basement level that is a kind of a community use space, which we understand Atmosphere Academy will be moving into. So, and then, you know, there's, for folks who are not familiar with the area, there's a steep grade difference between Dash Place and Waldo, which is why the basement area is street level on one side and Dash Place is street level on the other. And so this is, what's great is the New York City street map was just updated to have this kind of excellent shading of paper streets, so it's very easy to see them. And so this is Lower Brush Park. Brush Park is here. Here is Greystone Avenue. Here is Dash Place. And the new building is where this little house once was. And what else? This is Waldo Avenue, just in terms, I just want to make sure everybody kind of understands what we're talking about. Here's Manhattan College Parkway as it goes along, and Waldo. So the paper street is here. This building is one continuous cooperative. And then here it is without, a little bit of zoom, little less purple blob. And you can see clearly here on the street map, there's this kind of unbuilt paper street that goes through this, you know, rocky terrain. And it leads to traces of the original driveway that the house was using. And then, just to give you a sense of what it used to look like, this is the house. So here's the car parked here, there's like a little driveway. Here's the house, here's the cooperative building that's on Waldo itself. And then, you know, and this is the edge, just here is Brush Park. Here's the edge of Brush Park, and then these two decorative trees, God bless them, seem to still exist. And they're part of the paper street now. They live in the middle of the paper street. This is what you would have seen several years ago during construction. This is not what it looks like now. But I wanted to give a street view. This is the most recent street view in Google. So here's Brush Park, here's the cooperative, here is the paper street, and here is, you know, when the site was under construction, so it's a little bit hard to see the paper street part of it, the actual street, but it's easier to see now that the building's there. So here's the old original driveway. I think it was like a little beaten up from construction, maybe a little bit better paved and stuff. You can see kind of it gave way to construction debris and gravel at the top. And then here's the old, what remains of the paper street, which has got these two trees planted in the middle. I think one's a Japanese maple, and I'm not sure what the other one is. Jeff, do you know what the other one is? Yeah, it's the park committee, so, you know, it's a point of interest. So this is the area that kind of, in some ways, is the focal point of the meeting tonight. So I think it's helpful to divide the street, or to think about the street for the purpose of our conversation, as two parts. There's like this lower part that is adjacent to Waldo, and then there's this kind of upper part. I found this older picture, that this is Dash Place up here, and this is the old house. This is their old kind of terraced backyard, and here's the paper street with the, I think that's probably construction fencing. And you can just start to see the two large trees as a point of orientation. So this is what it used to look like. It's kind of easier to see it from the height. This is what it looks like now as it's going up. And then if you stand at Dash Place, this is what it looks like going back down. And you can see, like, there's definitely a need to stabilize the soil. We're seeing, like, these rutting, and so, but it came on my radar, because of, two reasons. One was, like, the community reached out last board year. It was like when was I chair? So, like, last spring. And Luke, and I looked into just kind of what was the situation at hand. Their concern primarily was that there would be, that this driveway, it's not a driveway, it's a street, the West 242nd to Paper Street would be paved, and then, it would have a lot more heavy use. And so, at that time, Luke looked into it with DOT. He had, experience formerly working at DOT. And, he determined that it was a street. There was no, what's the word I'm looking for? There was no claim to that particular piece of property. It was just a street. It wasn't built. And so, at that time, there was just really nothing to do. We let DOT know, like, that we were, the stakeholders around the community were interested in kind of having it maybe be more of a pedestrian space, or maybe even, like, adding it to Bruss Park, to try to kind of keep it more natural. Just to keep the amount of traffic at the corner from being busy. And the stakeholders are on the call, so I'll let them speak for themselves. Jeff's here, obviously I'll give the floor. I just want to give some background, because there is a little bit of a past, which in some ways helped us kind of act a little more quickly. Like, I at least had a sense of what was going on when it was paved. So, so this was kind of the concern was that there was going to be this heavy use of the driveway. There was also just a concern about the intersection, and just cars kind of is a complicated intersection just a few feet down. Then there was concern also about the trees, the two trees that are there, that like, there's a lot of rules around protecting trees at construction sites, and they seem like to have only kind of nominal fencing. So that was something that the Parks Department went and looked at. And then there was just a little bit of a concern once they discovered that Atmosphere Academy was going to be inhabiting the space, to just make a connection with Atmosphere Academy to kind of understand how the kids would be using the space. And because they were just worried that they might, that there's a lot of effort and volunteer hours that go into maintaining Bruss Park. So just to make sure that, there was some communication and collaboration ahead of time to get ahead of things was kind of the hope. So, just a few weeks ago, I got an email from Calder about the soil and debris runoff right after that really heavy rain, and we've had a lot of rain, but that it's really exposed how the soil needs to get some sort of topsoil, some sort of stabilizing ground cover, and then there's dumping, which it seems to be construction dumping that's going, like, these kind of concrete boulders near the gate towards Dash Place. Because I went over there myself, and I'm like, yes, there are concrete boulders that are not natural, that look like they've been rolled down. So, so those were the kind of the things that were raised. And then right before the board meeting, here's the photo that Calder sent. And then here's the kind of the washout from the rain. This little gate is towards, so Dash, you can see here is the sanitary sewer. Here's Dash Place. So it really honestly looks like somebody didn't want to take the boulders any further, but I shouldn't speculate. But that this is the area where it was open, it's still open, and and it just kind of straight down from that, there's this boulder and there's a few others, kind of rocks and stuff. in addition to this, like, just runoff, it seems like it's from the rain. So then we did a resolution, this came, what day was that? What day was that, October, the last board meeting? Like 3 weeks ago. The day of, I got a call that this was paved. The 10th, I think. Or 10th? Yeah. Okay. I got a call that this was paved, and that set off some alarms because DOT had not, approved any paving that we were aware of, and we, confirmed that there was nothing approved. And so it seemed like it was, I mean, just to be blunt, it seemed like it was kind of a land grab. Like there was like this fast paving happening is what it seemed like. There was no permit, there was no easement, there was no communication. And that's what kind of set off the alarms, and that made us feel like we needed to do something. Just that's where the resolution comes from. So, I will say though, I mean, I won't say it's the obvious, it looks really nice. And it looks better than this.
Do you have a picture from before the construction?
I don't,
I do, so, I have one, I can show you.
Okay. Yeah. So, anyway, so I want to stop there, and to let the other folks speak. And I can leave this up just for point of reference, or if people want to actually see folks speak, we can take it down if it's a problem. But I thought that it would be helpful to have this for maps and stuff, wanted reference. So I'll open it up to the committee first. Do you have any questions for me about the information I've put out?
Thank you, Deb. So there's a long history of this, and one of the reasons it's in front of the Parks Committee is because Friends of Russ Park,
Stewards of Russ Park.
Stewards of Russ Park had actually been using that, and they were hopeful for acquisition at one point by DPR of this property, and that didn't work. I remember fighting for that. Right, Bob? Is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I need to make a correction there. That's not the Stewards of Russ Park. I am the representative from the Stewards of Russ Park. There was a community group called Save Russ Park, and they were doing heavy
That's right.
advocating on that.
Sorry about that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jacqueline.
So at this point, who is the landlord of this property,
Which piece?
the street, unmapped street?
So DOT, it is an unmapped street, it is DOT property, and DOT acknowledges it's theirs.
We don't have to do topography. Has DOT learned of the use of this property by a private party? And
Yeah.
has it issued any permits retroactively for?
So the DOT, when we spoke to DOT, they're like, it's a street, it's public access. They spoke to Jeff, which we can let him speak in a moment about that. But that, at one point, it was a 30-foot street. Then the upper portion of it, that many, many years ago, was sold, the way that the city sometimes sells parts of the street, parts of the right-of-way. So the upper portion of it is only 15 feet wide. And the part that's on Waldo, this part that was paved is a 15-foot wide portion of it. And then the other part of it has, over time, the co-op that is there has used it as garden. I think that's fair to say.
Clear, it is a 30-foot wide street from Manhattan College to my property line. We agree on that? The 30-foot wide street.
I just want to remind you, like, this is a committee meeting, so you'll get to speak when you get to speak. Yeah.
But she corrected you, so I'm gonna correct you.
Yeah, but we're not gonna confront, yeah. Yeah, let's just keep it real.
Okay. So, can you tell me, does DOT acknowledge that everyone should have access, that access route, that a private party or anyone can use this for
It's
access
public.
to the property?
It's public property, yeah.
So then the question is, the improvement can made to the property.
Right.
Does he have unilateral right to make that with that? Okay. So, that leads me, I just want to focus our area of interest here. So, it's not that this is, using property, improving it for access, I'm sure, to the property. So, I wanted to ask you now about your stormwater protection plan as part of your construction. I've been chair of the Environment Committee for many years. So we're very interested in maintaining water on site, and most developments of this size will require stormwater protection of SOCs, which are flood mitigation efforts. They're tough. Obviously, you don't have these. So, that
Are they
would,
required of all construction?
over 5,000 square feet. Karen, you'll correct me, SWIP is over 5,000 square feet.
No, that's wrong. But,
Wait, so those are my questions. So
So
what
you're saying
have you done?
the SOCs are not required at your construction site?
For the stormwater protection during construction?
you can send that question in an email to me and I'll respond. I'm not gonna respond to that here.
We'll verify.
Yeah, we can check.
We don't need to get the answer from you either. We'll get it from
Yeah.
the city of New York and look at your. But my question is about the, improvement of the street and the
Right.
write-up. So I think, and to that extent, I just want to make sure this committee knows what we're here for. So there's already been a resolution passed.
Yeah. You want me to read the resolution?
No, I don't want to take time,
Okay.
unless everybody knows it, because I
Yeah.
wasn't at the meeting, and
No, it's
that's my fault. I'll just take a look at it.
Well, I can read it, because I feel like it's good to we'll just get it out in the record. So, whereas West 242nd Street between Dash Place and Waldo Avenue is a mapped but unbuilt New York City, it's okay, New York City street adjacent to Bruss Park on the north side and, on the north side, and 55 Dash Place and 387 Waldo Avenue on the south. Whereas the community, including the owners of 3875 Waldo Avenue and stewards of Bruss Park, have expressed concern on numerous occasions that a hazard would be created if vehicles, particularly buses or trucks, were allowed to use the unbuilt portion of West 242nd Street at Waldo Avenue as a driveway. Whereas West 242nd Street between Dash Place and Waldo Avenue is owned by the City of New York and under the purview of New York City Department of Transportation. Whereas the developer of 55 Dash Place, also known as 3893 Waldo Avenue, Timber Equities engaged a private contractor to pave the 15-foot width of the unbuilt street from the curb line of Waldo Avenue to rear property line of 55 Dash Place without an easement, without having secured permission from New York City Department of Transportation to do so, and without communicating their intent to other adjacent property owners. Therefore, be it resolved, Bronx Community Board 8 condemns and opposes the unilateral paving of the mapped but unbuilt portion of West 242nd Street between Dash Place and Waldo Avenue, adjacent to Bruss Park, until appropriate measures have been taken in consultation with the New York City Department of Transportation and adjacent property owners to ensure egress to the rear of 55 Dash Place is exclusively via a walkway prohibiting vehicles, except where emergency access is mandated by the City of New York. And be it further resolved, Bronx Community Board 8 calls on the New York City Department of Transportation to investigate and remedy the matter, including the installation of bollards or planters to protect the egress of 55 Dash Place from vehicular use, and report its findings and recommendations back to Bronx Community Board 8. So it's essentially about the actual egress to try to, protect the park.
My recommendation would be to make sure, if the developer were willing, to be a good neighbor, this could be a source of flash flooding because it's an incline, and of course, it's impervious surface.
Yeah.
And, so I would recommend a culvert system or some kind of, burn system along this, highway, this street now, to, take care of the runoff, which is gonna be severe. You're at an elevation, and it will cascade down into Manhattan. So I'm concerned about the addition, and there are design changes that a person can make once you sort out the right to improve.
The ownership is DOT for sure. I mean, are you suggesting that DOT review the kind of the current elevation and slope of the street in order to
Oh, yeah, it's not
address
private
water?
street,
It's not,
owned by DOT.
it's owned by
Yeah,
DOT, it's a public
right,
street.
okay. It's gonna be a source of flooding now that it's gonna be,
Is that a DEP issue to,
we would now,
I guess
because it's paved,
DOT would figure out what they would need to do in order to,
yeah, I would say this is a flooding risk.
You agree that maybe if it was, if there was grass, or, you know, if it was just stabilized, right? Like, right now,
I think you need soil stabilization, you need to make sure that there's no more erosion of the underlying bed, which happens all the time.
yeah,
When there's erosion, water erosion, and it's, you know, bad for business, obviously. There could be a culvert that diverts water, particular to the road by having grates within the road. There are ways you can handle it, but this is an issue, is what I'm saying.
yeah.
So I don't know if Mr. Perkins was interested in, but it would be bad for the integrity of the road, you see, reminding of the road, and then also a source of. So because it's now paved, we have to deal with that.
So maybe now's a good moment to, let the various stakeholders speak, and then we can kind of come back to some of these, raising these issues.
Those are my
So-
concerns about the erosion and flooding.
Erosion, flooding,
And
and
the right-
stabilizing the soil.
And the right to pave.
When you say right to move, you mean like to change, like, well, right, there was no permission to do that, but now that it's paved, it's paved. It's like, it's unfortunate, I mean, that's like unfortunate, because if DOT had paved it, they would have put in this drainage and stuff ahead of time if they wanted to pave it. Did either of you want to ask any questions before I open the floor just to the?
No, I would suggest, yeah, go ahead and do that.
Chris, did you want to, have anything you want to add or to the conversation right now, or anything you'd like to present about? I mean, I've given a bunch of history, I know, and put words in folks' mouths, so feel free to correct the record.
No need at this point. I want to be clear that cooperative has approved portion of the street that happened 10 years ago, 4 years plus. Maintained a portion of that 15 easement for temporary parking and for improvement, essentially, at our front entrance of the building. And the concerns about the paving are been stated. Additional vehicular traffic, I think, is problematic from a pedestrian perspective. And Bob's point, the improved surface is already creating flows and runoff for our staff to clean, and sewer system and on.
So, Jeff, do you want to, I know you've got some stuff you want to say about the history, or whatever you're.
This is a picture of the street, not a driveway. The word driveway is incorrect.
Hey, Bob, could you let Stephanie Ehrlich in? She's in the waiting room. Oh, never mind, I have mouse, I can. Hey, Bob, can you tell me to let Stephanie Ehrlich in?
Stephanie Ehrlich has joined the meeting.
Everybody see this?
Yep.
Okay. So
Stephanie Ehrlich has left the meeting.
Everybody see that it's paved?
Yeah, we can see his face.
Asphalt? Okay. So, the word improvement would suggest a change. Repair. So, what exists now is a newer, cleaner version of what was there prior to construction. That's number one. Number two, land grab. Repairing street is not a land grab. If you have concerns about the permitting, get up with DOT. I've already spoken to DOT about it. I'll get into that. But to use the word land grab with respect to a repair and restoration to a prior condition, I don't think is appropriate. In fact, this notion of paper street is more appropriate to describe the steep line where the building was, not this strip of 30 feet from Manhattan College to my property line. So, to be clear, 242nd Street has three phases. 30-foot wide strip that runs from Manhattan College to my property line, a 15-foot wide paper street that runs along my property, between my property and Bruss Park, and then a 50-foot wide street that intersects Dash Place and runs to Greystone Avenue. 30, 15, 30, 50. 15-foot portion is the paper street.
I'm gonna disagree with you.
Okay, that's fine.
Just for the record.
Sure. Be that as it may. The 30-foot portion is always asphalt, all the way up to my building. The use of the word land grab would be more appropriate to the co-op that grabbed 15 feet of that road, street, public street, for their garden. I mentioned this at multiple meetings 2020. I spoke to the manager, I spoke to Dan Paternak, who ran DOT, and I spoke to...
He ran the Traffic and Transportation Committee. He didn't work for DOT.
No, Traffic Transportation. And I spoke to Chairman Merdler about it. I never saw a resolution issued so quickly about that land grab. When I closed on this property, I arrived to find a yellow stripe. You can see it here, painted on 242nd Street, looking just like a DOT yellow stripe that you would see on a typical street. Painted that yellow stripe. Anyone know?
Pretty sure that that most of the condition of that street has been informally done over the course of decades. I mean, that's...
The yellow stripe was painted the day I closed on the property by the 3875 co-op superintendent. Okay? Why? In order to claim an additional 7.5 feet for the co-op's use. Another land grab. We were told it was so that the super of the co-op would have somewhere to park. So they divided the remaining half of the public street between them and us, and consistently referred to it as a driveway. It is not a driveway. It is a public street. Are we clear on those facts?
It belongs, so I think we can agree that the strip of 15 feet right now, and then the other 15 feet that is a garden now, that it belongs to DOT, and that it's not a formally built-out street, but it's certainly been paid for a long time.
Okay. But I heard land grab in this forum, referring to a repair of a street that was damaged by construction and Con Ed work. I have not heard the word land grab with reference to a 15-foot garden and an attempt to take private parking on a public street. So just want to put that on the record.
No, agreed. So the reason I use the word land grab is because it felt as though there was a rush to try to make it a driveway when there was a lot of community engagement around having it be pedestrian access. I think we would agree that it looks nice.
What community conversation about pedestrian access? I have not heard that once in the last 3 years. I've heard the park try and take over the street. I've heard many people on this call claim in court that it's not a street, that it is in fact part of the park. Now it's a street. Now today everyone recognizes it's a street. I've heard all sorts of mischaracterizations, lies and innuendo about the nature of this by many people in this room. So today, let's be clear. It's a public street. I repaired the public street, or the portion, without a permit, no problem, spoke to DOT about that. And we can pick it up with them.
Fine.
And I've been talking to DOT about this entire stretch for the last 3 years. So
can I...
now today, you're telling me that there's been all sorts of public discourse about this being a pedestrian walkway. I have never heard any of that. It's never been broached with me. So where was that discussion?
So from your purposes, right, you have just to be clear, so you have a building at the top of this. It's got, an entrance. Are you opposed, assuming, we spoke to DOT, and DOT has indicated that there's a fire access sign that is next to this driveway that gives the impression that the whole thing needs to be kept clear. So we did check with DOT about that, and they said that the curb access was adequate. There's no requirement to keep the driveway clear in order to, you know, get the fire trucks all the way to the door of Atmosphere Academy, but, which is gonna be the resident or the tenant there. But that there does need to be public access all the way to the back, like, and you know, according to kind of the rules right now, that whole 30-foot piece is public access. It belongs to DOT. That's totally true. So my question for you is, are you opposed to having that be kind of a plaza walkway, entranceway to your residence in the back? That's fair. Is there anybody, I'm getting...
Has anyone spoken to FDNY?
We were working with Department of Buildings who are looking into it. I mean, everything is still, like, nothing's gonna get decided at this meeting. This was really an opportunity for people to actually get to speak and for the committee to kind of learn about it and to kind of raise as much as we can of the issues. And so we've spoken to DOB, we've spoken to, DOT, we've spoken to Parks. Parks is here. So, well, I've got David Gelman's hand raised, and I wanted to see if there were, any of the other folks who are online, like Jacqueline or folks wanted to speak, and then we can kind of come back around. Right. Okay. And then, David, there we go. I've unmuted David.
Oh, okay, I was waiting for the high sign. Yeah,
Yeah, thank you. Sorry about that.
no problem. I was just wondering, I don't recall any prior information about there being a school there. You know, I'm sorry if I'm getting a slide or two ahead, but I mean, given the skinny nature of that street and no standing in, I mean, how would buses and the inevitable parents driving and double parking on Manhattan College Parkway not completely choke that pretty important street?
Yeah, it's a good question, but...
I can answer that. Number one, there's no buses.
David, can you hear Jeff?
Yes, no buses.
Number two, it's very possible that the DOT will decide to create a school lane in the parking strip in front of Russ Park for some mention.
You mean along the curb?
Yeah, between the Methodist home and the property, and they may decide to create a no stopping zone, just like they have on Greystone Avenue for Fieldston, or they have in front of any other public school, standing during school hours.
Do you know if there's been any conversation about that yet?
Don't know.
Do you know when the school is opening? So is it opening in the spring? It's Atmosphere Academy. I don't know if I said that. Yeah.
No, school's opening.
What kind of school is it? Is this an elementary school, high school? What is it? High school?
Since it's almost November, I'm going to assume that it's maybe going to actually start classes in January. Is that probably the case?
They're going to move in as soon as it's finished.
And will the school have anybody there to help deal with the traffic that will inevitably happen when parents inevitably double park?
And it's a high school, not a lower school. And
Yeah.
most kids arrive by public transportation or on foot.
That's not actually true.
Yeah, Jeff, how long have you been in the community? You know better than that.
I live next to a school and
Yeah, even Independence Avenue is a mess sometimes, right, when school's starting.
And that is 6 lanes wide.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a question. Atmosphere Academy, that's the school that's presently down on the lower portion of 242nd Street, off Broadway? Is that also, that part is the high school, would they just be moving up to the other building?
They're expanding.
Right, that's what I'm saying, but right now, it's a high school that's in the lower portion. Both locations. Right, so it'll be, like, I mean, it'll be in both locations?
Yeah.
On the lower portion and up. I can just say, for the fact that it's down on 242nd Street, that school, there is no parent pickup. It's all children traveling from, or by bus,
Oh,
by public bus.
factual.
Oh, interesting.
It's factual. Thank you.
Is this,
No, I mean, I'm just putting that out there as far as that's concerned.
Thank you.
Those children do not have parents pick up. It is all bus transportation. When they move when they go over to the Van Cortlandt Horse Place and when they are in the park, I'm here, it's out in the park.
Right.
So they travel, they do not have any
Well, that's
bus
when,
transportation.
but that's when they're coming to,
No, but that's, I mean, when they're
Sports
coming to school, it's all on the train. All right, 'cause I ride the one train and, right, yeah, so, and they start pretty early in the morning.
yeah.
So, yeah, and I'm on the train with them, and when I'm coming home, I get home like about 3:30, 4 o'clock. They are on the one train.
Right.
All right, and they're, yeah, so there is no car activity as far as that.
So it's different than, yeah.
we can just hope the school.
So, but wait a minute. So Jeff, you didn't really answer my question. Are you going to make a provision in your agreement with Academy that they are going to monitor and manage the traffic in front of the school on Manhattan College Parkway?
School has 3 locations in Riverdale and Marble Hill. They are a very well recognized and solid member of the community. They understand how to run their operations, and I'm deferring to them to manage it appropriately. As I said, they told me
Christopher Hosford has left the meeting.
no buses and limited drop-off.
All right, all right.
Look like you're done
I got a
talking, so we
counterfactual
lower
that
your
was
hand in 8 seconds.
counterfactual. So, no,
All right, I'll ask for a third time then,
Press
because
MD plus tilde to
my
reach pop-up and
experience
lower hand
and
and lower.
observation on Corlear Avenue, where their primary location is that there are parents double parking on both sides such that no one can get through. So I'll ask you one more time. Will you make a provision in your agreement with the school to make sure that they are responsible for monitoring and managing the traffic in front of their school entrance on Manhattan College Parkway?
I'll discuss that with the school.
And will you get back to us with that answer?
Well, David, that might be something for the education committee. too.
That's fine, Deb, but the question still stands.
Still stands, yeah, yeah.
So we're clear on the 30 feet. Is this the beginning of the 15 feet you're?
Yeah.
Okay. What's the future of that?
That's DOT's decision. We've spoken to them about it, and they told us not to touch it.
Haven't said anything about if they're gonna pave it? They haven't indicated it?
It's not gonna be paved.
When we spoke to DOT, they don't just, they don't just pay, they gotta do all of everything. They said that they had no intention of developing this street, this paper street.
It cannot be improved because of ADA access.
Steep, yeah.
All right.
Can I get an answer to my question?
Oh, I'm sorry, David, did you have another question?
I asked, will he get back to us with an answer when he talks to the school?
We want to know if you would get back to us. Getting back to the board, I think, would be adequate.
That's fine.
Yeah, he nodded.
Okay, sorry, Jeff, I couldn't hear you.
Oh, he
Thank you.
nodded, yes.
No,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm being facetious. Thank you.
I thought the rocks in my head were finally making noise. Jacqueline, your hand is raised. Can we unmute, oh, you're unmuted.
Yeah, hi. So the point that I've brought up repeatedly, even that has not much to do with Bruss Park, because that's a whole
Looks
other
like you're done
subject.
talking, so we'll lower your hand in 8 seconds.
Is that this particular intersection
Press
is
CMD plus
absolutely
tilde to reach
unique
pop-up
to
and lower hand and
Riverdale
lowered.
because it is used constantly by Manhattan College students. And So that's an added complication there, and I just wanted people to be aware of the sort of traffic it is. So in addition to having, you know, street blocked, because I've sat on the Atmosphere down on Broadway, and literally had to sit there 5 minutes and couldn't get to a meeting in my car because it was blocked with. So there's more to this because of the students, and I don't know if anyone wants to talk to Manhattan College about this or if there's any concern there, but that's been something I've observed.
So Jacqueline, you were getting kind of spoken over by Zoom. I just want to make sure I heard what you were saying. So you're saying that the existing kind of that driveway inlet, like the Manhattan College kids were parking in that inlet before?
No.
No.
No, sorry, you couldn't hear me. That 242nd Street portion backs out onto Waldo Avenue, right, almost like 2 car lengths away from a 3-way intersection with traffic lights. And that intersection is used constantly, day in, day out, by Manhattan College students going from class to class and from, you know, activities, et cetera. So it's an unusual situation. It's not your typical 3-way intersection. So I would just ask that people keep that in mind as they're discussing how traffic and school and pickup and all of that happens. I think it's more complicated than that, and whether anyone has talked to Manhattan College about this. I just wanted to put that out there because that's my biggest concern outside of, you know, how the students are going to work in the park, which is really not probably part of this conversation.
Jacqueline, when we spoke to DOT, they were the ones who suggested like maybe putting some planters or something to limit the vehicles coming into the driveway, because it seemed like if it was a school that if I was a parent, I would immediately drive right up to the door to drop my kids off. Like, would planters be something that like the stewards of Russ Park would be able to maintain? Usually, like if DOT puts some kind of planters in, they want somebody to agree to like just put, and by maintaining, you know, the plants. Like watering the plants or replanting the plants seasonally, or putting the mums in the fall, or whatever the plan is. But doing that maintenance of those planters.
I think that's going to not fall fully into the purview of stewards of Russ Park at this juncture. We have limited volunteers. There's certainly myself, but I think that this would need to be a joint effort between 3875 Waldo. This is how I conceive of it. Possibly myself, as long as I live in the neighborhood, and possibly even the Atmosphere Academy.
That's true.
I think it's open for conversation.
Krista, do you think that there'd be folks in the co-op who would be interested in maintaining it if there were planters there?
I'd be open to discussion, sure.
Jeff, do you think that that's the kind of thing that the residents, your building is kind of billing itself as a luxury thing, that kind of something might be something that they would like to participate in as well? Okay. So, where does that leave us? Wait, Jody's hands up. Jody, would you like to speak? Do I need to?
Yeah, just a couple. You addressed some of it. I was just curious as to how people would know not to turn into it. So planters or something blocking it. And then, since you did mention that, I mean, Jeff, you probably have a landscaper. That would be a good show of good faith, since it was paved without a proper permit, and you're getting it after the fact. So, you know, that's something that I think that we should ask you to do, is to take care of those planters, since you did pave that street. So what do you think?
So I will point out that the residents in the building, they're going to be looking out over this. And so it's maybe like an opportunity the landscaping would also serve that purpose too, to make it a little bit better looking. What are your thoughts about just like, you know, not something crazy, but.
Where are we talking about landscaping?
So the Paper Street part here is what we're talking about. So just putting some sort of, ground cover here, so this is stabilized, and then, putting some sort of ground cover here, so this is,
The conversation with DOT, they told us not to touch it.
okay.
We-
Yeah,
we-
well,
we-
DOT,
We've had all sorts of discussions with them. They said
you'd be open to it.
They said not to touch it.
Deb, excuse me, I was talking about the planters, not the slope stabilization.
Oh, I'm sorry. So you were talking about the planters. So you were saying that you're asking if they would be willing to, do the initial planting in the planters?
DOT usually will plant, but then nobody maintains them. And since I'm sure if it's a luxury building, Jeff has a landscaper, it's a very simple thing to look at 3 planters and pull out weeds or put in a seasonal planting. And it does, like you said, add value for a luxury building, not to have DOT dead plants in them after the first 3 months. So, so that's something to consider. It really would not be it would not be as big of a burden as asking volunteers in the community to take care of it. And since Jeff did pave it without the permit, that would be a good neighbor step. Just like Jeff, when you cleaned up all the dumping that was in the park lot next to you on Palisade Avenue, I just thought you would be a good neighbor in their neighborhood as well.
I'm not clear where you're talking about putting planters. The first step is to address the garden bed that's already there, because that should be removed, and there should be a sidewalk with street trees. So once there's a sidewalk with street trees along the co-op, then you can tell me where there are going to be planters. I'm not convinced that planters or bollards to restrict traffic are the right approach, because I think FDNY is going to want to have access right up to our building, and I think FDNY is going to want to have access to the back of their building. So
I'm just gonna.
I'm pretty sure that signage, standard DOT signage that says emergency vehicle access only, will prevent people from coming in there. And the fact that it's a dead end and there's no way to turn around will prevent people from coming. These guys have had a sign on their building that talks about a 15-minute tow-away zone on a public street that enforce it, but they best that they do. So, there's signage that people put up, and then there's signage that the DOT puts up, and typically DOT signage is followed.
So, to start, so when we spoke to DOT, and I can say as the former chair of traffic and transportation, these, all over the district, you have these kind of encroachments. Like, there's lots of places where there's paper streets and where the streets are not clearly delineated, and so people's stone walls and plantings and shrubs and stuff have moved in, so they're actually in the roadway. DOT in general is very hesitant, unless there is a strong public safety need, to take out things that have encroached over long periods of time. These beds have clearly been there for a long time. So, I can't speak for DOT, and that'll be DOT's decision, but it would be very, very unusual for them to decide to, remove these beds for no real reason. There's no intention to build out the street. And I think it would seem somewhat arbitrary and capricious for them to decide that these beds need to go and this unbuilt street needs to be widened. I think that would be unusual. So, yeah. So I guess where we're landing here is that, we need to kind of, I wanted to check with the committee. Yeah, are we?
I'd like the committee to get a, read from the community about what is the best use of the DOT paper street. Is it that we can advise DOT, and I think it'll become transportation committee, on, whether to make it green, how to keep access, and I think we owe it to the community to make a good approach for how to deal with this. Sounds like that's the property now that we're really concerned because the 3 feet is done. I do think that it, like everything in this area, in a steep slope, some risks, and we should be talking also to ways that they could infrastructure. The evidence is there of undermining.
Deb, can I ask you a question? That 15-foot wide strip that's from Dash Place down that we're talking about, is it any different now than it was before the construction started? Has the construction altered it in some way?
Only in as much as the former property owner, when we purchased the property, had built own landscaping, steps. There's a swimming pool.
So Bob had like a little swimming pool here,
Mm-hmm.
and then he'd done some.
He had built all sorts of encroachments into the public street. Those were for the most part removed.
Yeah, that's the street.
In removing it, has that changed the slope of that property? In removing what was there before?
Really, I mean, you can see the, you can judge by the manholes that are in there.
Yeah, right here's the sand.
There are 3 rated sewers that, where the soil was, and to give you a measure of what's what, those were always above grade. So, not really.
So, yeah, I would recommend keeping a line of communication. We could advise DOT plan.
I mean, Chris or Jacqueline, do you want to answer that question here or address that here? Like, what would you like to see ideally on either portion of the paper street?
Speaking as a resident, not Jacqueline, you go.
Well, Jeff and I some time ago discussed planting that in. I think it's a benefit to his property and the people who'll be living there. And of course that would suit the park and the whole atmosphere of the neighborhood. But I haven't had a conversation since then, and I haven't had anyone from the Parks Department involved particularly. So I don't know where we are with that. So.
I think the Parks Department is letting DOT take the lead on it because it's a paper street. So I think that's really the discussion is happening with DOT in terms of what's needed for remediation, like, and what, and kind of where we want to get to ultimately. I guess we had to hurry so quickly when it was paved to kind of say, wait, we need to stop and have a conversation about whether this is pedestrian use or a driveway. And I wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page about it being a better use for it to be pedestrian, just for pedestrians. So it's essentially a plaza. So the kids can come out of the school, kids can go into the park, and that people can park along the curb. And I wanted to make sure that we were kind of all on that same page.
My apologies. I kind of lost attention there, and I thought you were asking specifically about the skinny part running along the side of the new building. But obviously that is going to tie into the slope and erosion and any of that system. As far as the plaza is concerned, I mean, I'm coming from a designer perspective here, and I could envision some reworking of that fence that's currently between that driveway and the park, and to make it much more inviting and open to whoever, whether it's a school or down the foreseeable future, could be not a school, it could be some other community oriented entity that stays there, but this could be access to the park. Now that's a redesign, that's a capital improvement, that's a whole other subject. I did mention it to Eric Dinowitz. I had him meet with me in the park some months back earlier this year that because there are other hard structures and infrastructure in the park that needs to be addressed, 1 year in the near future, hopefully. So I don't know. That's all that has happened on my side of things. I don't have any further conversation with anyone at the Parks Department or otherwise, but I think that could be a very nice amenity to the entire community.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Jeff.
Hey,
with
Deb,
folks,
I just
with
want, I'm sorry,
yeah,
Deb, it's Joe
just
Magnier.
I just want to check with Jeff on whether he also had his eye on that fence, and then I'll come back to you about what's possible. So when your residents are looking out over Bruss Park right now, they see a pretty dilapidated fence. Is your preference that there be, a new fence, no fence, so it kind of just, the two pieces kind of meld together, so it's just like a rustic?
I would get rid of the fence.
And Jacqueline, what do you think about getting rid of the fence?
Just aesthetically, that would be a lovely thing. I don't know if there are other factors that come into play there. I don't have enough background knowledge to have an opinion on that.
Talking about it, yeah, aesthetically. So that's why I'll now throw it to Joe. I mean, Joe, do you have any, what's your experience with that fence and how necessary it is?
Yeah, I mean, that's a conversation I'd have to have with my chief on whether or not we would take it down. I just want to, address what you were saying about it being landscaped and, like let's say planted or something like the planters are, whatever, that's between whoever in DOT. But as far as us taking on any other property, like this is going to be DOT's lead. Like we're not going to get involved with taking over the property. So, but I could ask about the fence and where the chief and the commissioner stand on removing the fence.
I mean, it's cheaper to remove a fence than it is to wait for a capital project, so,
Absolutely. I just don't want to, give an answer on that, like whether or not, yeah, take the fence down. You know what I mean? I'd rather get some, get the answer from a chief or the commissioner.
So I see Rosemary Ginty has her hand up, and then Jody, and then I think unless anybody else has some pressing question, we can kind of close this out. Rosemary?
Okay, well, thank you. I'm sorry I wasn't able to get in for quite some time into the discussion, so I'm sorry I missed a bunch of it, so I apologize if I am talking out of turn because I missed a lot of the conversation. This issue is something that the community board, different committees have dealt with for a long time. Those wonderful people, the Friends of Russ Park, have always been concerned about a number of things, and that street was always one of them. I just have to say, I hate to be oversimplistic, but I'm going to be oversimplistic. This is a DOT issue. This is not, when I hear paper street, it kind of diminishes the importance of it. This is a legally mapped street on the map of the city of New York. It runs from, where it runs from Manhattan College Parkway up to what is it, Dash Place. It is very steep. It is clear when you look at the topography, it is mapped to become a step street at a certain point. That's clear. We have step streets all through our community board. DOT has to come in and explain their approach to this legally mapped street. What do they, as DOT, what do they think it should be designed as? Okay, it is clear to me a portion of it has to be a step street, but they're the ones who have to do it. What I have heard thus far, and again, I apologize for not being part of the earlier conversation, we seem to be trying to accommodate an illegality. We should never be in a position to accommodate an illegality. It's illegal. Strip it up, you're gone. DOT should tell us as a city agency, what do they envision as that map street at that from Manhattan College Parkway to the point where it can no longer accommodate cars, okay? And what do they envision the rest of the street? Clearly, it has to be a step street, and then at the top. DOT has a legal obligation to do that. They're the engineers, they should be doing that. And I urge you not to sit and try and solve the developer's problem. Do not sit there and try and accommodate an illegality. The people, the Friends of Russ Park, have been asking for a long time to deal with all of these issues, and the street was one of them. Okay, it should DOT first. Parks, whether they like it or not, have to be part of the conversation after DOT comes in, and then the community looks at what DOT proposes, Parks says, and then we come in. The community comes in to address it. This is going backward. We should not be bending over backwards to accommodate an illegality. I'm sorry, that's the third time I said it. and I won't say it again. Thank you, Deb.
Jody? Rosemary?
Thank you, Rosemary. I was actually going to suggest that this be moved over to the Traffic and Transportation Committee, since it's clearly a street issue, and the 15-foot portion can't be turned into a vehicular street because they have to put sidewalks on, and there's no room. So I think that DOT definitely has to address that and say what they're going to do or not do. And if they're not going to do anything and just leave everything as is, then, this becomes another people landscaping the paper streets, which are mapped but unbuilt streets. I mean, that's literally what it will turn into, that smaller section. So I agree. I think we need to have DOT actually be here and not have you in the position, Deb, as the Parks Chair, to be relaying DOT's idea. That's really a Traffic and Transportation Committee issue, because we've seen as past chair that they kind of do whatever they want to or don't want to do, and it would be good to hear from them what that is or is not. So I echo Rosemary's comments.
Thank you, Jody. And so, just for transparency, I've been Kelly Buford, who's the chair of Traffic and Transportation, I've been working with her and keeping her in the loop. Because this is not a street that anybody really is using as a street, it doesn't have any of the kinds of issues that one normally, worries about with streets. And because inevitably this is gonna probably end up into some sort of either impact to Bruss Park or volunteers caring for it, or it's been, so far stayed with this committee. If DOT was actually going to try to come tonight, and then they were unable to come. And so, it sounds like we'll probably need to have them come back at some future meeting, and whether that's a joint TNT Parks, or whether Kelly wants to take it over, or whether we'll just kind of wrap it up on this side. At the end of the day, I think this is just an opportunity to kind of have everybody be in one place and hear each other. And so for that, I thank everybody for having a pretty good civil conversation. I feel like we've gotten some kind of sense of quorum about, or, consensus is the word I'm looking for. So the kind of the follow-ups are really, we'll wait to see what DOT has to say about the condition of the street and, what's possible. We'll invite them to a future meeting of some sort, either in Parks or TNT. The green infrastructure is one of the big concerns, and just avoiding debris going into the park, which is also part of the reason it ended up in the Parks Committee. And then anything that's, and then I think those were kind of the main things. And then David, his concern about just in general the traffic coming out of the school, which, Julie, we can talk about who's best situated. That kind of seems like a Sylvia expertise thing, but I know there's only so many committees, there's a lot of spreading things around, so we'll see what makes sense. So thank you, everybody, for the conversation. I think this has been really, really helpful. And I'm going to move on to the second topic, which I promise I will speak much less about, because Tony Butler has raised it. And this is how to summarize it really quickly. The Van Cortlandt Park, along Broadway, along Van Cortlandt Park, there are track meets almost every day. And Tony lives across the street on Broadway. I will shut up now.
My name's Tony Butler, and I live at 6141 Broadway. Those who are not familiar with that, it's across from the Quarters on the Hill, the statue, and by Lloyd's Carrot Cake, which I'm happy you all probably frequent. My problem is that for 20 years, I have been asking that we get some control over the traffic problem that happens when we have meets. There are the big meets, and then there are the meets that happen every single day through September, October, and hopefully it'll stop in November. And I want these children to enjoy themselves, but in the 20 years, I've become a bit disabled. So the things that I could tolerate and put up with before, I can't do it any longer. She has pictures and I have pictures and she has all the complaints and I have some complaints that we've called into 311 where my private garage that I pay for every month gets blocked, and when I ask people to move their cars, they get indignant. If I have somehow offended them for something that I'm paying for.
So Tony, can I stop you 1 second? Captain Pierce, are you there?
Yep.
Do you hear me?
Still here.
Okay, I just
can.
want to make sure you can hear Tony. And you can hear Tony speaking, yes?
I can.
Deb, please
Okay, great.
stop the,
All right.
screen share, please.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Bronx Community Board 8, NYC has stopped screen share.
God, we gotta get rid of that new,
Get rid of
editor.
that.
So, in the past, one of my neighbors who has since passed away and my sister used to come downstairs and ask people to move, and I was in better physical health, so I've run the cars, knock, knock, could you please move? Can't do that anymore. I'm walking in a walker, and my brother's in a wheelchair. So what we have are people blocking my garage so I can't get out to go to doctor's appointments. And when I come back in during the weekday, I can't get back in because they're blocking my garage space. What really offended me the most was this big meet that they had for, I guess, about a week ago or so. What happened was you had buses that were double parked. You had of course, on the park side. In addition to that, you had them blocking the number 9 bus stop on 251st Street, and the one, I guess it's about 45th Street, by that garage. And until I threatened people and started taking pictures for their buses to move, they refused to do it, and most of them ignored me. So because I'm trying to strengthen my back and my legs, I walk with my walker every morning. And so I was walking down the street and then coming over to the park side, and what amazed me the most is, for these big meets, they're asked to not park on the park side. And then I was thinking to myself, you know, when you look at that parking facility, and I have no problems, we have to move the cars, but if you look at the bike lane, which nobody's asked to give up on those holidays, during those events, but you ask the people that live in the neighborhood to give up their parking spaces during those events, why can't both lanes be used for the buses? If those buses were put from 242nd Street up to 260th Street, there would be no double parking, because the buses
Not true.
fit side by side, they'd fit in the bus lane, and they'd fit in the bike lane, and they'd fit in the car lane. And so I was thinking to myself, why is it that you ask so much for the residents, but you don't consider how you can accommodate the residents? No problem, we give it up, we want the kids to have fun, but none of those things are taken into consideration. And quite honestly, we have been talking about this for a very long time now. I know that many people have said to me that there are people out there to ask people to move along. That didn't happen this past meet. It absolutely didn't happen this past meet. I'll turn my phone back on, she can bring her pictures, and she can give you the references that she got from 311 for every single day for 2 weeks solid that she called 311. I was hung up on 311 on several occasions. And I had called the 50th precinct, and they told me that, and I do understand this, that they had other things, given the terrorist threats and all of those things. But then I was thinking, why am I not important? And that's what bothers me, because the thing is, you're asking me to accommodate people that don't live in my neighborhood, don't live in my borough, don't live in my state. You want me to accommodate these folks, but nobody has thought outside of the box to accommodate me. Now, that to me seems like a very simple solution. I've gone up to the police department and I've knocked on the window because I asked one of the 2 women police officers when I was doing my walk if she would go up to some buses and ask them to move. I saw her pass by the buses and she never did. There were 2 women police officers in the car. So I'm trying to understand, 20 years ago we thought we got better, and now we've regressed. We haven't progressed at all. Now, I've been out of the community for a while because I've been with my son because I've not been well, and he lives in Maryland. But I'm back now, I have to go to my doctor's. I don't think that I should be prohibited from going to my doctor's because kids want to run track. I want them to run track, but not at my expense.
Thank you, yes.
Hi, my name is Robin Stevenson, all right, and here's the deal, ladies and gentlemen. Right, it's not just the track meets. Park is being totally utilized now, and as Tony stated, we don't have a problem with that. you now have the following people using the park. Is now the place for all of the football practice.
That's me, 'cause I'm gonna bring you, show you the picture
No,
of the buses.
all the football practice are done there, the field hockey. It's also a skateboard park up there now.
Where's the field hockey?
The field hockey is on the parade ground.
On the parade ground.
They practice field hockey on the parade ground.
What school is that that's doing
That's
that?
all schools.
It's all
All
schools,
schools.
high schools and colleges.
And they are, you know, they come in the school buses, they come off the train, it's fine. But what you have is a constant people of double parking. I was gonna shake some Tony, so I have, when I get off from work, like I told you, I get off from work, I get off the train between the hours of 3:30 and 4:30. I'm getting off the train. When I get off the train, I start at 242nd Street, that's just as good messages. I start at 242nd Street. I call 311, and I go forth and I give all the information. I give the license plate number of the buses, the description of the bus, and the description of the vehicles that are parked.
Right.
I walked from 242nd
You can do
Street
that. There's no
down
question
to
on that one.
260th Street. That is how far the buses are double parked. Now, you have the buses, the charter buses are parked in the bus stops. That's what she's talking about. So now you take into account that you have a charter bus in the bus stop. You have a person, which is our brother, who's in a wheelchair.
Right, people need to be able to get on the buses.
You can't get on the bus. The bus will either pass by because they don't see that there's somebody at the bus stop,
Right.
or the caretaker has to go out in the street, flag down the bus, wheel the person, because you can't use the walkway. So now you're wheeling off the street, and you have to wheel out into the street to flag down the bus to get a wheelchair person onto the bus after you flag it down. You're in the middle of the street now.
Right.
The other issue is that you get on the bus at 238th Street, right? When these meets are in effect, because it is so double parked, it's the street. You've got the bike lane, you have the cars parked, then you have the cars double parked. That's on the side of the park. So now, what do you have left to go down? You're going down the street going in the opposite way, all right? Obviously, you guys aren't concerned about this part, but there's cars double parked on the other side of the street as well. So now the bus can't go down the block. So now it takes 15 to 20 minutes to get from 238th Street to 246th Street, because cars are going like this. One car let this guy go down this way.
Right.
Now, this car is going down this way.
Right,
And only one car can get down the block at a time.
right, because everybody's double parking,
Because
trying to go around.
everybody is so double parked, there's not even one lane. They're riding on the yellow to get down the street. So people are in the street and people are going there. The last time the discussion was talked about, turn it off, but you gotta get a message. The last time that this was discussed, there was a portion put out about having the cars park, the buses park in the golf course, because there's parking
Right,
over
I
there.
thought that there was
Right,
someplace else that they were
there's-
supposed to
right,
be,
they
they
were
were supposed to
supposed to
come,
be
they were supposed
parking
to
in the
drop
golf
them
course.
off, and they were
So
supposed
they
to
drop them
go.
off, go over to the golf course, and then when they needed to be picked up, then they would come back around and pick them up.
Right,
Yeah, that's totally not happening at all.
so this might be a good moment to talk to Stephanie Ehrlich. Stephanie, are you, no,
I'm here.
you there?
I'm here. Yep, I'm here.
I don't mean to pull you out of the bathroom or whatever is happening in the middle of, hey there,
No, just
Stephanie.
eating dinner. That's okay. Hi, everybody. So,
So, yeah, can you
So,
speak to,
yeah,
like,
let me-
how?
so I just want to say that I have spoken, and I feel pretty badly that this is happening because she wasn't here last year. I think that things have had gotten better, but this year things have, 2 steps forward, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. So I think that while we had gotten a handle on it the past 2 years, things have really gone awry this year. And what we're trying to figure out is why that is, because we provide this information to the schools. We have a map, hear what you're saying about telling the buses to go someplace. There's a map telling them where they're supposed to go, and they're not doing it. And as I had mentioned in our phone call, I go out there myself. I'm not in uniform, and I go and I tell cars to move along. And the cars generally are more amenable. The bus drivers this year have been very, very uncooperative. So it is very frustrating. And I think that one of the things that is hard for us is that we don't have PEP, Park Enforcement Patrol, in any great numbers. We're not able to call upon them to move cars away, and so it's very challenging from our side of things as well. But it's not for lack of trying. We have definitely given this information to schools and to after-school programs to let them know what to do with the buses. So at least we are trying to do that.
Stephanie, I thought that back when Bob was chair,
Mm-hmm.
there was a plan where they were supposed to, as Robin was describing, like that they were supposed to drop the kids off, they were supposed to go, park someplace else, and that if they didn't do, and that the buses all had the school name or something identifying them, so that it was clear who the buses belonged to, so that if they did double park, then the school would be accountable in some way, right? Wasn't that what the arrangement was?
That is exactly right. That's, Stephanie, you remember the arrangement we had made. The buses were supposed to go over to Jerome Avenue to park over there.
That's still the plan. That's still the plan.
If the buses did not cooperate, we were to take down the information about the bus, whose bus it was, find out which school had hired that bus to come to the meet, and tell that school that if this problem continued, that school would not be allowed to come back to the meet. And we had a lot of cooperation from the athletic directors. I specifically remember Mr. Febbles if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, from Fordham Prep, who was organizing this with the other athletic directors from the schools. And he was totally on board with this. And we did solve this problem for a couple of years. We did not have the double parking problem. So I'm terribly disappointed. As you know, I was away this year. I'm terribly disappointed to find out that it didn't work out this year as it has in the past.
So I think what I have heard is that it is much worse on weekday afternoons than it is on weekends, and that's one thing. The other is that we're severely limited by the coverage that we have. I mean, if I'm at my office in Renaqua, I'm not able to get over to the park and see see which buses are doing what. So it would actually be really helpful, and I'll share my information. You can send photos, you can send details to me at my email address at Parks, and I'll put that. There is no chat, but we'll share my information. It's my name, stephanie.ehrlich@parks.nyc.gov, and we'll share that so that people can write it down. If you want to help me in this way, it would be incredibly appreciated. So if you take photos of buses and you see the placard of what school they belong to and you send it to me, we will follow up and we will make sure that they are told that they're on notice. That's something that I could use your help doing.
If I may?
Yeah, David.
Yeah, this is why I reached out to you this afternoon. Tony, you and I have been talking about this for over 5 years. And I couldn't hear you whether you were talking about last Saturday with the Manhattan College Invitational. I do know that at the Invitational, I was there in front of the Tortoise and the Hare from 7 a.m. till about 4 p.m. in the rain. And that day actually worked pretty well because we were able to shoo all the buses and all the self-important parents double parking along the way. In terms of weekdays, I've not been there on weekdays, at least not in any helping capacity. I have observed some of it. I would say I haven't met the captain, but I would say that one of the most effective and simple things that can be done is for an RMP, a patrol car, to simply drive up and down Broadway, maybe once every half hour, and just burp your siren, and people get religion real quick. They move. And if you do that at a bus stop where a charter driver thinks that, oh, well, it's a bus stop, I can stand there. No, he can't. And if you run your siren for 3 seconds there and tell them to move on, they will go. So I think Stephanie's absolutely right. The pictures of the buses and identifying the schools so that she can contact the Public School Athletic League and the Catholic School Athletic Association to let them know that they're in violation, that these schools are in violation, will help in the future. But I think having the 5-0 drive up and down Broadway, like I said, once every half hour or so, and I'm talking about probably 8 minutes in total time per hour, that would have a substantial difference. But I think that Manhattan College Invitational a week ago Saturday was a good example. I thought it went very well. Part of it was, I think it was raining, and I don't think as many self-indulgent parents were out hanging out, but still, I thought the traffic moved rather well, except for one circumstance that Cesar Saller is well aware of now. But anyway, that's my recommendation, those two things with Stephanie and with the 5-0.
Thank you, David. I just want to let the captain speak really quick. Captain Pierce, what is your suggestion? What's your plan for managing this?
So I appreciate the issues. I don't necessarily agree that a car with sirens on is going to move anybody. Post-COVID, nobody cares about the police car. A better solution is to have the little guys with the light blue shirts come out and put the little orange pieces of paper on the car. And that generally will work. So what I'll do is, if you guys get me specific times of events that are especially problematic, I'll reach out. We were able to get a very large traffic detail for the I don't know what the name of it was, the event last week and a weekend before, and I think that's why the traffic moved.
Manhattan College Invitational.
Yeah, that. So we did things a little different. That seemed to have worked. But I think that getting those guys out there and actually putting the little orange pieces of paper on the car is probably the most efficient way to actually move them.
So, Captain, do you have staff that could do that at these events?
No, but we can request, if we have an event, I can request traffic like we did for that other event. We had like 16 traffic agents there.
What is being raised is that it's every day of these meets, right?
Right.
It's during the weekday, 1 to 5
Right,
every day.
It's during the weekdays, right? If they start dropping off, say like at around about 2:30, and this continues on. So I'm listening to what has been said here, and so since I have the 7 or so 311 complaints where I gave the license plate number and description of the vehicles that were double parked in the crosswalk and double triple parked all up and down Broadway. So can we get that number? If I give that 311 complaint number, can, the Parks Department now in turn get those license plate numbers to track down those schools so that you can have a list of the schools that were double parked? I put down the license plate number on each 311 call, which is about 15 to 20 license plates.
What you're asking is, can we go from the license plate that you've documented to the owner of the school, the busing company,
Yeah.
to the people that they contracted out?
Right, so that, you can follow up on the list of reaching out to those people to say, look, if you double park, you're gonna lose your privileges.
Right.
So
Is
let
that
me just say, Tony, I don't think that it would work that way. The most effective thing is if you want.
Robin.
Oh, I'm sorry, Robin.
All right, my mother used to do it all the time, it's okay.
Sorry. if you want me to follow up, you just have to send the information to me directly. What happens with 311 is it's good for it to be reported into the system because then there's a record of it, but I'm not always sure how it gets routed. Sometimes, it'll get routed to parks. Sometimes it'll get routed to DOT, sometimes it'll get routed to.
I have my copy that they sent to me where I have the license plate numbers, is what I'm saying.
Oh, send that to me. Send it to me.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Oh, no.
Yeah,
I'm talking about
absolutely.
my
So,
copy.
yeah, send it to me.
Stephanie, you might need some help
Okay.
running the plates though.
Yes, absolutely.
So if you want, you can
That-
email
that-
them. I'll email you
Okay.
back the.
Sure.
Captain,
So
you're
I'm
saying
sorry.
you can run the plate and identify which bus company owns the bus?
I sure can.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Captain?
Tony, yeah.
I have a question though. I'm really happy with the things that we've talked about, but as I said, I walked up and down the park. So my question is this: to accommodate these schools coming and allowing everything to go without having a horrible impact on the community, why can't buses double park on the bike lane and in the car lane all the way down from 242nd Street to 260th Street, and for the amount of buses that come, that would accommodate them? Because what I did was, I took a tape measure and I measured the amount of space, and I looked up to see what the circumference of the bus was, and it would accommodate them. This way, we would have no problems. Of course, what happened was, they put up a no parking sign, but it was only in the car lane. But if they had both of those lanes, that would accommodate all buses. The key to that, though, is that parents should not be allowed to park in those lanes because they towed cars, because I can see it out my window, and then they allowed parents from these schools to park, and so they took up spaces that buses could have. I was under the impression when they towed away the cars from the residents, that then that area for parking would only be allowed for these school buses to come. So, and they're not really school buses, these are charter buses, so they're pretty big. But if you were to give up those two properties, the bike lane and the regular lane that you said no parking on, that should accommodate all of these buses and alleviate this whole problem. Yes, parents will have to scramble for parking or pay for parking, but the biggest impact on us is the blockage of the buses that take up the bus lanes, and then double park because people's parents have parked their cars because they got there in the morning. Those two lanes should only be limited to bus parking. And I thought that was the whole purpose of putting up the no parking on Saturdays. So I don't understand why parents of these children were allowed to park in the spaces that I thought were only going to be designated for these buses to bring the kids in.
Make sure that I understand. So a part of this parking is set aside so that no one's allowed to park there? Is that,
Right.
that's the case?
Right.
And then we're letting parents are parking there anyway.
Exactly. And they're not being told, and so as a result, what you have are parents getting there earlier than the buses. They're taking up the spots that buses could have taken. And there's nothing in those cars. I only know because they're running back and forth with their coolers to get their stuff out. But the point being is, if that was only allocated for charter buses or whatever's representing the schools, that would, if all of those buses, there can't be, there has to be from 242nd Street to 260th Street, an accommodation of at least 100 to 150 buses.
But if the bus is parked on Jerome Avenue, the way they're supposed to,
And that would
then
be
that would
be wonderful.
That would eliminate the problem, though,
And that
right?
would be wonderful, but they're not paying attention. So if they were to be put in those two lanes, that would accommodate them without impacting the people that live across the street.
Yeah, but the problem with that is that you're talking about for big events.
This is every week, this is every day.
Every day, you don't have a sign that's saying no parking.
No, you're right.
So during the week, when this congestion issue happens, which eliminates the total lanes that come, that's the problem. The other thing is,
So just on that point, so is it that during the week, there's no reserved curbside
No.
for
There's no
these buses?
reserve,
So
no.
the buses are all double parking
right,
with their
they're
cars in
all,
between?
right,
Is that
they're
what's
all, they're all double parked,
Okay.
they're in there,
You're
so
gonna
they're,
get to-
right.
I will let Belinda Hancock speak next, just because David, you just spoke, and then we'll come back to you. And then I guess And then we'll let Captain Pierce speak. Can you have the kind of a floor? Belinda Hancock?
Yes, hi, good evening. I put this issue up a couple of years ago at a Zoom meeting regarding the charter buses, not only double parking, but parking in the regular bus stop, the city bus stops, the number 9 bus, to the point that if anybody who is handicapped, whether they had a walker, a wheelchair, or somebody with a stroller, or somebody who, you know, use a cane or any other apparatus to get on the bus, they cannot board the bus because the bus is out further from the curb. And that issue was brought up, and it was recommended, I forgot whom said it, but they would seek about making provisions for the buses to drop off their, students, a parking area, a large space that would accommodate all these charter buses to park until the meet is over. They will be then contacted to come and pick up these runners. That never came into fruition, and we still have these buses parking in the bus stop where people have difficulties getting on and off.
All right. Captain Pierce, I just want to, the problem is obviously happening during the week, about 2:30 until 4 every day.
7.
7?
7 p.m.
Through rush hour? So 2:30 to 7 every day. So, is there an existing, why is the curb, why is there not some cleared parking so that the buses can get to the curb? Why is it not treated like other track event days? Do you have a traffic plan that's just kind of in place for Broadway? It kind of sounds like you are mostly focused on the big events and not on this. And maybe that's part of an important distinction, is that this is happening every weekday right now because of the importance of the Van Cortlandt Cross Country course to, the world of cross-country races. There's a lot of activity there.
Sure. I'm not sure what you're asking me about the parking. You're asking why we don't no parking there every day?
Well, I guess what I'm asking is, it seems like for the big events you have a plan, and it seems like
Sure. Yeah, but that also,
the weekday is a little more ad hoc, and maybe that's part of the issue here.
well, we can't implement that same plan every week. The plan involves us changing the parking rules temporarily, which we can't just do. We can't just put a sign out that says no parking Monday through Friday. But that's what we did for that event, right? So we put signs out that say no parking Saturday. We had a no parking detail literally the night before. We towed all the cars off the corridor. We can't do that week to week. So legal parking spaces are legal parking spaces. If we want to designate them as something else, I think that's something DOT has to do. That also being said, traffic rules are traffic rules, right? So, it's great that Parks is trying to help us out by punishing the buses on their end, but at the end of the day, that's us. We deal with that. So what we'll do is I'll look to get some traffic agents out there, and if I can't do that, I have a traffic team. We can get them out there, but I don't think it's a long running problem like that. It's not going to get solved with just presence. So I have to get somebody out there with the sign.
Okay, no one addressed my issue though, as far as bringing up.
So wait, Belinda,
I don't think she heard about the Jerome parking. I don't think she heard it.
Yeah, Belinda, just hang on for 1 second. I want to just ask Stephanie. So Stephanie, the plan that I understood that was in place before was primarily for some of these bigger track events. So, does this require this kind of weekday heavy usage? Is this just changed? This has become more of a thing in the last few years, and that's part of the problem? Or in your mind, was this the plan where the schools were on notice and everything? It sounds like the buses can't even get to the curb to drop the kids off. Is that not true?
Buses can get wherever they need to get to. They're pretty aggressive. I think that there are more buses this year than schools were fessing up to. So we have a very, very big meeting with athletic directors twice a year to talk about all of this. And we are very clear with them that this community is not comfortable with the amount of traffic on Broadway. We make that abundantly clear to them. We also give them all of these maps digitally that they can print out and share with bus companies. They're not doing it. They're just not doing it. And I have to say, you know, the big difference is, as Captain Pierce was saying, there are these big events, and we can put a lot of people power and a lot of resources towards the. I mean, the Manhattan College Invitational was a 10,000 person event, so we can block off parking, we can do all those things. That's not something that we can do every single day of the week. I just don't have the staff to go out there and push cars along. I mean, you know, it's really, really difficult every single day of the week. So we can marshal forces when we have a big event, but for these smaller events, which seem to have grown in terms of the buses that are coming with them, that is what the problem is this year.
Stephanie, we seem to have residents along Broadway who are willing to take down the license plate numbers, call 311, and we've just confirmed with the captain that if we have the license plate numbers for the buses, he can determine which buses they are, and we can trace it back to whichever school hired those buses.
Well, we don't know that you can trace it back to the school. I only know that I can tell you to register. So if it's the same, if schools are using the same bus company, you're going to probably have an issue there.
Yeah, I mean, the schools do tend to use the same bus companies. That's true. You know, they tend to have contracts. But, you know, Stephanie, I think we've just got to be serious with the schools about how big a problem this is. If it works for the big meets, I understand that you don't have the staff to monitor it, but if the residents are willing to monitor the situation and we're able to find out who's hiring these buses, I think we've got to be serious with the schools that they're going to lose their permits to operate the meets during the week. And,
I agree with you. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I
mean,
agree with you 100%, Bob.
solution.
Yeah, there is a solution going forward. I'm just trying to explain what's gone awry this year. So I think that in terms of deputizing everybody here and anybody that you know who wants to help, the most important thing for me to be able to do this quickly is to take a picture of the bus with a placard in the window so that I can understand the bus and the school. Then I can go and I can talk to the schools immediately. There are, you know, the other information, getting the license plate number, doing all of those things, that's going to be much, much slower going. So the most effective thing is a photo of the bus with the school placard and send it to me.
I'm sorry to interrupt you on that one, Stephanie. Your charter buses are aware that I'm walking around and taking their numbers, so they remove all information from the window. So all I have available to get is their license plate. You will not find one charter bus with a name in the window. They remove all of the information, and in some cases, the ones coming from Florida now put a paper over their license plate, tape a paper over their license plate, because I have gone down and done this on a daily basis. So
okay, so one thing you can do, I mean that's.
And obviously, I'm not going to take the paper off the license plate.
Right.
But you know, they are so totally aware that they know, oh, here's this, you know, crazy lady on Broadway again, that they take all of their information out of the window, and you only have the license plate number in some cases. In some cases, they cover up the license plate with a piece of paper.
So here's a suggestion, and this can be helpful, is to take a picture of the sweatshirt of the kids all have team identifiers. They wear jerseys, they wear sweatshirts. You don't have to get a child's face, just get the name of what the school is, or write it down. Don't take a photo. You can say, this is the bus, this is where it is. I saw that there were kids from such and such a school getting into this bus. That's all I need. That's all I need.
Okay, I'll take down the names. I'm not comfortable with taking pictures of other people's children. I'm sorry.
No, good job. Good job.
Yeah, not comfortable with that one. But I would like to pose a question to the captain in reference to my 311 call, because I'll place the call, say like at around about, you know, start my call at around about 4 o'clock, and end, because there's so many license plates that I'm giving them, when I end the call. And I understand there are a lot of other things going on in the city, but by the time that somebody is dispatched, 7:30, and so they're, you know, so I get the response to my 311, text back to me, this situation no longer exists. And you're right, at 7:30, it doesn't exist anymore.
Well, and I think the thing to really focus on is what Stephanie is describing, of getting it back to the school. Like, if the school knows that there will be consequences, then they're gonna be much more serious with the bus drivers and the bus companies.
Yeah, I know, but I just wanted to
Yeah.
talk to the response time on that, so like from 4:30 and then
Yeah.
it's like nobody until 7:30.
Yeah.
So, you know, like, I only out of the 5 311 complaints that I made, there was only one where they said, yes, they moved the cars along. All the others, because I stood out and waited, you know, I know that the car came through. When the car came through, you're right, you know, this situation no longer exists because it was like 7:30 in the evening, and the cars were gone by then.
Well, listen, I'm
David and, oh,
not gonna be able
Captain, yeah.
to make 3 hours sound reasonable. But we do prioritize our 311 calls based on like violence indicators, right? So loud music, parties, stuff like that, that's going to get prioritized over parking issues. It's just the way.
Run that.
Okay, that's what I wanted, some clarification for my own notification
So
of, you know,
generally
what's-
speaking,
why that's
we
different.
generally have like a 311 auto out. We haven't been doing that lately because of the stuff going on with the houses of worship. So we've been putting a house of worship car out instead. When we get sort of back to regular operations, we'll put that 311 car back out, and that'll cut some of the response times back down. But to be honest with you, like all I'm hearing is you guys are putting this right in my wheelhouse. You're asking Stephanie to solve a problem that I can solve for you. But like, let me do some enforcement up there, and I'll bet you a lot of those buses start talking to each other and move. But just give me a little bit, because it's not gonna be right away. But I'll start getting either my traffic team or we'll get some traffic agents up there. And when I guarantee you, when the little orange pieces of paper start getting put on the buses, they'll leave. And then we can still talk to Stephanie about who's getting the tickets and stuff, and I'll tell her the registered owners, and she can still reach out to the schools. You know, they don't want 100 and I think it's 120 now for double parking. Bus stops, I think 115, something like that. Nobody wants that.
Hi, my question.
Belinda,
Yep.
you have to raise your hand. I've got I got a line, a couple of people ahead of you, but then I can come back to you after Jody. So it's David Gelman, it's Jody, and then it's Belinda, and then I'll let Stephanie, the captain, have the last word if they want it.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, David, that was from before?
Thank you. Stephanie, you're right. I think that identifying the schools will be helpful 1 to 11 months from now, but not day of. Captain, you're right. What you really do need is people giving out the orange envelopes with tickets. And I think it's very good that you are prepared to talk to traffic enforcement. But with all due respect to your brethren over on that side, they've got to get out of the cars. All right. You know, on Manhattan College Saturday, there were a number of traffic agents around, but they were looking at their phones in their cars. And I was there for 8 hours, so I got to observe it a lot. If they get out and give out a couple of tickets, and maybe some of your people cruising occasionally on an afternoon up and down Broadway, you're right. There should be absolutely no double parking, including the buses and the motor coaches. But they have to get out of the cars and give out the tickets. Thank you.
So I'm hoping that was just because those guys on Saturday knew there was enough of them. But you know, if I call traffic enforcement division and they send people and I don't see summonses written into the system that we have when I check, it's going to be upsetting. So I'll make sure that doesn't happen. But like I said, we also have our own traffic guys. So
yep.
If I can't get Ted to cooperate, I can use my guys. I mean, I'd rather have them riding mopeds, but you know, we can spend a couple hours doing that for a couple of days. I don't think it'll take that long to clear up.
Yeah, and I think the bus drivers will get the word once they get a couple of tickets. Thank you.
David. Jody, your turn. You got your hand up?
Yeah, I'm having like deja vu. This has been going on since I ran track in the 70s and when I was on this committee in the 90s. So I would just like to suggest one thing that we did back then is what Bob suggested is have the Parks Department let the permit holders know that if this continues, they could lose their permits. And the other thing that had come up back then was, and it sounds like that's what's happening now during the week, is that it sounds like the permits are beyond the capacity of it being able to be manageable. Because Captain, you know, you'll do it for a while and then they'll have different bus drivers and then it'll be a whole cycle. So maybe we need to have like an escalation plan for this so that when it spikes up again, or it's a new season and it's new coaches or new drivers, we have like a system of the progression of how to address it, because it works for a while and then it doesn't work and then we kind of start all over again.
So, I mean, what you're describing is sort of like the cycle of enforcement, right? Like that's kind of always the way it works. If you take your foot off the accelerator, the problem comes back. We have a really good relationship with Parks. I know Stephanie and Commissioner Aponte, we can set something up where if they start to see something they don't like, they can reach out to me. We'll send somebody up there just in case it starts building back up again. But you're right. I'm not gonna be able to devote my traffic team to doing this for the next 3 months in a row. But my hope is that you do this a couple of weeks, they get the idea, and then you really you got to get through the season. We'll get through the season.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Belinda?
Yes, hi. Is it because you there's no space that can be accommodated for these buses to park off Broadway until the track meet is done for the day so that the buses can come back and pick up the passenger? Is there no space that that can be contacted to say, hey, can we use your parking lot to have these buses stay here for the duration of a few hours and then come pick it up? Because it was suggested and nothing ever became of it, and it was dead in the water.
So, Belinda, just to recap, I think, and this is maybe just a good recap in general, is that I think that Plan A, as I understand it, is that the athletic directors and the schools have been given a map of where they're supposed to park. They provided this to the bus company. They're supposed to park over on Jerome Avenue, not on Broadway. And that they've been told that this can impact their getting permits if they don't follow the instructions because of the impacts.
Well,
So,
apparently, someone's still not
so
paying
now,
attention.
right, so now let's talk about how we put teeth into that. So then I think the plan going forward, from what I'm hearing, is that Captain Pierce is gonna get some units out to give some tickets. Robin is gonna take some pictures of some uniforms or write down names of kids' schools, and get those to Stephanie. To go along with the license plate. Stephanie is going to contact the athletic directors and, if you need a letter from the community board or something to make it seem more scary, we can do that. To put them on notice that they'll lose their permits if they keep doing that. And that's what our plan is gonna be, right?
Well, hopefully so, because this has been going on for the last few years and it's continuing and continuing. And nothing seems to be done about it.
Stephanie, aren't the buses
that's
allowed
not
to
true.
park
We
in the
did.
golf overflow on weekdays?
Sorry, David, what?
David, you're asking if we send them over to Van Cortlandt Golf, over by Van Cortlandt Park South?
Yeah, on weekday afternoons, because there aren't as many buses.
We don't send them over there.
Could we or should we?
I think that we need to give that a little bit of thought because we have some problems there with buses staying there and parking for parking overnight and parking for extended periods of time when and it's a big lot, but it's not so big when cars are trying to get in and out. And so having buses in there is actually problematic. I'm not sure that that's the solution.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure that that's the solution.
Okay.
And there a penalty
mean-
for parking there overnight if you're a bus?
No, they do it.
No, no, they just get locked in.
Buses. park
That's
in
another
the-
conversation we can have, Bob.
In the golf course,
Okay.
and the
All right.
patrons
All right.
can't park in the golf course.
Well, I think we've got our marching orders. So Stephanie, we have a plan? Are
Absolutely.
you happy with the plan?
It works for me, and I think honestly, the very important thing for folks to realize is that we don't have much of a staff. We don't have much of an ability to have a presence out there every single day of the week in this time period. So your help is really essential. If you're able to take photos, write down information, and send it to me, that is going to be the most effective way for me to get back to the schools. So thank you so much for offering to do that.
Should we also just request PEP to augment the 50th precinct? I mean, I know they're limited.
They're very limited. I mean, when I hear that there is a problem, I call PEP immediately, and they're not always able to respond.
Just to recap.
She's going to send her information, and I'm gonna send my information to Stephanie, who's
Yeah.
gonna pass it on to the captain.
License plates, yeah, and he can connect it to the bus companies, and then that, Stephanie can kind of work from it from there. But then also, going forward, when you see buses that are behaving this way, just getting, any indication of what the school is that's connected to them, I think probably pretty quickly, we'll start to see specific schools are not, managing this well. And Stephanie will then reach out to them to put them on notice that they'll lose their permit.
Okay, and then she'll report back to you, and you'll disperse that information to us. Something's going on as opposed to just not knowing what's going on.
Well, Stephanie, are you gonna get back to, Tony and Robin directly? Or, through CBA? Or through CBA?
Well, Tony, you have my personal information, so if you need to.
Directly then.
Alicia knows the committee does.
No, I do, and we will forward you, as well as the community board, all the information that we have. The reason I'm asking this is because we want to make sure that this doesn't go dead in the water.
It's actually happening.
Okay,
It's not
because quite
accountability.
frankly, we're not gonna see a lot of traction right now because their season's about to be over. But I've lived in this neighborhood for 40 years, I'm gonna live in it another 40 if I live. And I don't want to have this problem, particularly, and I think what really got my ire up was, I was coming back from the doctor and I had to go to the bathroom, and I couldn't get in my garage door. And that was like the end. I was like, why am I paying money and then I have to beg somebody to move? Problem.
Stephanie, I mean, Tony raises a good point of accountability. I mean, I think ideally what I'm hearing is that if Tony sends the information to you, then what we would like to hear back is kind of who the schools are, what you did.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry. I misunderstood the question. It's a little hard to hear. So,
Yeah, sorry.
Absolutely.
That's basically what we're looking for, right?
Yeah, I
Some
just want to
specifics.
make sure that there's follow-up and we're going to see some traction on this.
Yeah.
And the captain is getting in contact with Stephanie about the people who he ticketed when he sends out the traffic.
Right. Well, and maybe at the next meeting, it would be, we can reach out to see how many tickets have been issued, how many summons have been issued for this issue, Captain. That would be great. If you can give us that
Yeah.
number, like, at
That's
the end of
super-
November.
Super easy. It's easy to look up. It won't be a problem.
Thank you.
So we're moving on to the next agenda item, which is, old business. Anybody have any business older than, double parking in front of Bruss Park, or in front of, Van Cortlandt Park?
I do.
About new business. Oh, wait, David, is your hand raised for old business?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I'm not sure whether it's considered old or new. It's from 9 o'clock this morning.
And then, newly born business.
Okay, fair
The
enough.
floor is yours.
Okay, the letter that was sent to Parks about the stables.
Yeah,
The gist of our conversation was definitely that we wanted them to provide preference to organizations that are committed to reaching out to the broadest possible spectrum of our community. And also that we are encouraging the next concessionaire to provide scholarships, low-cost pony rides, or free access to programming once a month to allow people across the district direct access to experience horses and other animals. I fully agree. However, the statement that, and so encourage you to consider alternate uses like animal sanctuaries, and we encourage you to give preference to nonprofits. That is not my recollection of the committee's sentiment.
I mean, okay. The way I had kind of taken it out of the meeting was that was just one of the issues that had come up, was that they were needing a nonprofit in order to do the community work, like the therapy horses and that kind of thing. And so it would be easier if it was a nonprofit that was actually running the stable, if they had a proposal and they were able to do it.
But that is not to say we encourage you to give preference to a nonprofit. That's sort of loading the dice a bit. We want to encourage the broader thought spectrum by parks about service to the community, but we shouldn't be leading them to any one type of entity. And we didn't say that we wanted them to do that.
I don't remember this specifically, but I think, David has a point. I think what we could say is that the Parks Department should consider a nonprofit as, one possible solution to the way in which we can make therapy animals available and that sort of thing.
Absolutely,
In other words, no
absolutely.
preference.
And to consider it, but not to, but also, I agree. Thank you, Bob. I really appreciate that. But also not to say that we encourage you to consider alternate uses like animal sanctuaries. Again, that's sort of prodding them in a direction that they want to keep an open mind and take all comers and see who best serves the community. Absolutely.
That's what it says, though, because it's really, that was under the idea of making it more competitive for note.
I didn't get a chance to read the letter, and I'm sorry I didn't, but has the letter gone out, or?
Well, they came back to me and said, we need this because the deadline is pressing, and so I kind of put the notes together. I can always send an edit, I can send a revised version, though. I mean,
It went out a week ago. We probably should have seen it earlier than this morning.
All right, well, why don't we make suggestions to you, and, if you feel they're appropriate, you could send out a revised letter.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I mostly tried to make it based on the conversation we'd had. I take your edit about the preference versus considering. But, I mean, just send me your edits, I guess, David, and I can send a revised version. That's fine.
That's fine. That's fine. I will do so. Thank you, Deb.
No, totally fine. I have a hand up. Jody.
Old and new business, segueing into, Bulbapalooza, we had a rain date, with Friends of Spite and Dyeville is once again collecting unplanted daffodil bulbs. So if any of the community groups did not plant all their bulbs, we will take them and distribute them to other groups or the public at our November 18th Leaf Crunch event at Henry Hudson Park. You are all invited. And also on November 22nd in Shorefront Park, we will once again host Ellis Prep Academy on the JFK campus. They are first and second year immigrant students. Mi español es muy malo, but I got away with it. And we will have the Parks Department and the super stewards from the community as well as other boroughs to help us make further progress in Shorefront Park. We've cleared another 100 feet of trail, and now we're working on removing invasives from a second set of trails. So you are all invited. That's the day before Thanksgiving, November 22nd in Shorefront Park, and Saturday, November 18th in Henry Hudson Park for Leaf Crunch. It'll be raking and crafts and hot beverages.
Thank you, Jody. The November 22nd one, what's that called? It's not Leaf Crunch. What's the?
That is the Ellis Preparatory Academy Day Before Thanksgiving Day of Service. Their name, not mine.
Okay. Rolls off the tongue. Okay.
Yeah, it's the second year that we're hosting them, and actually, we used to host JFK High School for their environmental day back in the 90s.
Got it. Okay.
Okay?
Thank you. Anything else?
No.
All right. Bob?
Bring your dogs to Cortland Park.
Oh, yeah?
I've got to see it. It's Halloween pup parade.
Oh, yeah. All right, Halloween, that's this weekend, right?
Yes. I've actually got to register. Yay.
You lose Stephanie or Christina?
Yeah.
What time is the pup parade?
I'm not able to hear what was said.
What time is the pup parade?
I'm just shouting
It's
out
at
the
12
pup parade
o'clock.
on Saturday.
Noon.
I'm not attending.
No, you're not coming?
What day?
No, I am.
Sure. Do you have a dog?
No, but I like dogs.
Okay, good.
I'm gonna come out.
So there's a Halloween costume parade at 12 o'clock on Saturday, this Saturday, the 28th. There's also a music program happening that we've you just heard my dog bark probably. There's music also happening, and lots going on in the park. There will be cross-country races too.
By the way, I am allowed to howl with the dogs, aren't I?
It is a public space. You can.
There's my daughter.
All right. Any other new business? All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second? We are adjourned. I'll turn off the recording.
Stop recording, pause.